What's the cheapest one? $4.
How do you not know this yet?
$4.
Yes, $4.
$4 a month.
What's the
And you
most
get all this
expensive?
show early, huh? $12. No, 23 for the
25.
25, 20 something.
This guy.
I'll
He's
get
not
those
even
prices
just
right.
he does the editing.
That's all I do is the editing.
Really,
She did. She set
and
it
all
up.
of that stuff that you can't see.
Yeah, she set it up. And welcome back to another episode of the Riley Black Project with Crystal and John.
Hi.
We have live guests.
Surprise.
Not just on the webs, but we have Trish and Christine.
Good job.
And I would say what company, but
I actually told you not to ask.
Well, here's the thing: I would have to ask them because I see it on their shirts, but I can't read that first, and I don't want to mispronounce. That's the thing.
So I asked. She mentioned it when giving me the codes for the podcast and stuff, and then she had a whole story behind it, and I was like, "You're gonna have to tell us that on the podcast."
Oh, I could just read.
I turned that around for you, so
it was help him.
Right?
Yeah, but I didn't know because I had seen the logo on there originally.
Yeah, just in case.
Yeah.
So yeah, the name is Say Creative, and I get Cest Creative.
I would have said
Cest.
Crest
That's what I was thinking. Cest.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and so what does it mean? Because you had like a whole. She said she described all of it, and she's like, it's this and this and this, and it means this, and she's like, all that to be called Crest Creative.
So it's French for it's creative. C''EST is it's creative in French. It's a play on my name, Christine, first initial C, last name Estalon, EST. I also studied French growing up. I ended up marrying a man from France. So my children are French. So I have a French influence. And it all kind of played together. Right. And at the time, it seemed like a really good idea until the first vendor show that I went to. And they announced the people. And they're like, so this is Cest Creative. I'm like, Say Creative. And I kind of like when I named my
say
kids,
creative.
Yes.
Cest Creative.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. It hasn't really played well for us. But, I did all the legal filings for the LLC and everything.
That's such a pain.
Yeah. I didn't want to undo it.
Right.
So it is what it is.
Yeah.
Stay creative.
Well, she gets called Riley all the time.
All the time.
Oh,
I bet.
Yeah.
One of my suppliers, I literally, and I have to, I need to go in and like change it or start using, because I do have one email address where it's literally, Crystal at like Riley Black, whatever. But because I think the way I set it up, because when it's just Outlook. And so you have to kind of put like a first name and a last name. I think I just put Riley in Black. So the way they might see it might be Black, Riley, or I don't even know what it looks like when I email them. But every time they call me Riley, and I go out of my way to sign every message to them as Crystal. And it's funny because like in the same day, an email chain, she'll flip-flop calling me Riley and Crystal and Riley. And so I'm called Riley all the time. And I always have to like correct them. I'll do like customer service chats for whatever. I think I did one the other day for Shopify, and they're like, hi Riley. And I'm like, actually my name is Crystal. Riley is my company name. And I figured they'd know too. I mean, because Shopify, it's not like all of my personal information is in there too.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, it's, shows up on there. I think just because Riley is obviously like a name because that's where I got it. And then it, with the two words Riley Black, they just assume it's a name. And it was funny because I told them and I was like, oh, my name's Crystal. And they're like, oh, okay. Oh, thanks, Crystal, whatever, beautiful name or something. And then the next message, so Riley, I was like, and I go, Crystal, and like a winky face, and they're like, "Oh yeah, that's right. Sorry."
It probably pre-populates, like on their chat
especially for like the chats and stuff. Yeah, so I get it all the time. I have to explain it's Crystal. I'm Crystal, not Riley. But for the most part, I thankfully chose something that's easy for most people to spell and whatever. But I don't know if you listened to last week's podcast.
I did not.
How dare you? I'm just kidding.
It just came out.
David, it did literally just came out like yesterday. Yeah.
Unless you're a patron.
Yeah. I'm kind of on vacation.
Yeah, right. How dare you not listen to a laser podcast the day it comes out while you're on vacation? So we had David on, and he was just talking about how he didn't realize until afterwards that he chose like bad company names because one of his his blank side, well, not blanks, he sells some materials because it's materials he uses for his other business. And it's creative cut supplies, but it kind of sounds like creative cuts supplies. And so like
Even
you
I
don't
had to
know.
ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is like, yeah. He's like, I get that all the time, and they always mess it up. They don't know if there's like an S at the end, and then supplies does have an S, so it's confusing because there's like an S at the end of which one.
Mhm.
And then what were the other business names? But those like Woodland. Forget his other one, but they struggle with the other one too. They mess up, after like the first word. And he's like, I'm apparently really terrible at choosing business names because I always choose stuff that it doesn't like translate over. And you could, with my luck, I'd ask 10 people and 10 people would be like, oh, that's perfect and have no issue with it. And then again, like you said, you go through all of the work to get it like registered and whatever, business cards, depending on how far you go before you realize the customer's like, what is it called? And you're like, oh, yeah. And then it happens again and again. You should do like maybe on your business cards or even on like part of your logo, put the phonetic spelling underneath it.
I did an Instagram post where I did the phonetics and a little bit of the story behind it, just a random about us type thing.
Yeah.
It hasn't helped.
Yeah. No, you got to like slap it in their face repeatedly. So it'd have to be like on your logo, and then it'd still have to like smack them in the face for it to be effective.
I need to work on that. Maybe you can help me smack some people with it.
I love smacking people, so let's go.
Speaking of all things laser, check out Houston Acrylic at houstonacrylic.com for reliable laser tested and laser approved materials.
Made for makers by makers, Houston Acrylic features over 450 styles of acrylic sheets. With over 50 new arrivals being released this month, Houston Acrylic is committed to bringing new and innovative styles to the laser community. My personal favorite is the matte, anything matte, and I feel it's perfect for everything.
Don't forget to save 10% by using our exclusive coupon code TRBP10 at checkout. Get inspired today and visit houstonacrylic.com.
Do it.
Attention all laser owners and crafters. Are you tired of spending hours cutting, painting, and assembling laser products? Look no further than Crazy Laser Dad Laser Ready Blanks.
Their high-quality blanks are expertly sourced, tested, and ready to use with your lasers. Say goodbye to the hassle and frustration of time-consuming projects and hello to more time creating and selling.
Plus, with their wide selection of items, you'll surely find the perfect blank for all your customers.
So, what are you waiting for? Visit crazylaserdad.com today and take your laser crafting to the next level with their laser-ready blanks.
So, how did you get into? Well, first, how did we meet?
Okay.
So, originally in person, it was at the Eon party.
Yep, Eon party.
And then
prior to that, Facebook groups. So I started with a Glowforge, and before I got involved in the Eon world, I kind of just lurked in the laser groups. I didn't interact as much because I think the laser was just so new to me, and I didn't realize there was such a community because I was really involved in the Tumblr community.
Well, you were just getting your feet wet.
Yeah. And epoxy tumblers were really what our main business was at the time. So the laser was just kind of hanging out there. What am I going to do with it? What is it going to be when it grows up? And until I realized the Glowforge was never going to grow up.
So
there's that.
Yeah. So I think I first came across you with the watch bands. So that was one of the things that I could do in my Glowforge. And so I think I got a few files, and so I started to recognize your name as a designer. But then when I got the Eon, I started to see you more as more of a pillar in the group with the trainings and all of the different things that you do, and with the keychain thingies.
Yeah, designing doesn't happen as much anymore, but I'm gonna get.
We're gonna get there. We're gonna get
miss it.
It's so hard to do both.
Oh yeah. Well, podcast, keychain thingies, designing, then
all 16 things in your case.
I do way too much, but I can't give any of them away because they're all like my babies. So it's like, and I love them all like differently. Like the inventory and the keychain thingies doesn't really. There's only so much creativity I can have with that. It's kind of fun to like pick items, but then it's hard because like picking the right items. There's some things that I'm like, oh, I'm sure these are going to sell really well.
Mhm.
And then those are the things that don't sell very well. And then the things that I'm like, these are hideous, and then people love them. And so it's
Yes.
like, it's hard, as far as that goes. And then it sucks because as far as inventory goes, to get the best price, you have to buy more, but then I don't want to buy too much and then they not sell.
Mhm.
Or the other side is if they sell really well and then I sell out, and then I have to hope that they want to come back by the time they
Right.
come in stock again. So it's
Mhm.
like this constant, and then designing, it's similar in that, I could spend all this time making it, and then I think everyone's going to love it and buy it. And then, it's always the opposite of what you think.
Mhm.
Or sometimes I make things that people think are really cool, but they still aren't buying it because they don't find like a purpose in like their line of
Mhm.
like one thing is one thing I really enjoy making is the like intricate milestone files, like the sushi file. Well, it's just so specific,
Okay.
and it's not, I wouldn't necessarily say it's advanced, but I mean, if you make it exactly how I made it, it's like at least 6 or 7 different colors of acrylic alone.
Wow.
So, and then so there's like some engraving that you kind of need to paint a little bit. There's the layers, 3M, like all of that. So like they're not exactly like beginner files. Now I still feel like a beginner could do it,
Mhm.
but it's just so, then I make these really cool files and everyone's like, oh my God, that's amazing. But then like I don't think I sold very many of the like sushi milestones. So then
Mhm.
and then the podcast ended up, it was his idea. It was never something I really even like thought about doing. I thought he was crazy when he first brought it up because I mean, I hated how my voice sounds. And then I was like, okay, as long as we don't do video, now look at us. And I hate how I look on camera.
Don't forget to watch us on YouTube.
Yeah. But then the podcast turned into the thing I enjoyed doing the most, but it's actually what makes me the least out of all of the things. And so it's like, sure, I could give up the podcast.
Also,
but
subscribe
it's
to our Patreon.
Good job. Hey guys, thanks for watching and listening. If you'd like to support us monetarily now or in the future, here are a few ways.
You can join us on Patreon and reach out to us to run ads on the podcast.
For only $20, by the way.
Only $20.
You could also buy a file from my Etsy shop, some keychain accessories from my website, the course to learn some file designs, or explore one of my partnerships with either Eon or Pyburn.
Yeah, and you can find all those links on our Facebook group. That's the Riley Black Project.
Yep. To support us for $0 a month, you can share the podcast with your laser friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel, interact with our content, share, like, comments. What else?
And subscribe and leave a review on our Apple podcast. And then follow us on social media. That's Facebook and Instagram, the Riley Black Project.
Yes, we appreciate your support so much. We have big dreams of John joining us full time, and anything that you can do monetarily or for free to help us get there, we appreciate it so much.
Welcome to the revolution in laser engraving. Introducing Lens Digital, the creators of the game-changing Pyburn rotary attachment. With the Pyburn 4.0, you can turn ordinary cups, tumblers, glasses, and more into extraordinary masterpieces.
Looking to engrave niche items or want the functionality of a chuck rotary? Look no further than the Pyburn Grip, Lens Digital's chuck-style rotary. With a range of different sized jaws, you can easily engrave a wide variety of items. All Lens Digital products are compatible with most CO2 and Galvo lasers and were designed specifically for the laser industry. All that paired with the best-in-class customer support, Lens Digital is your one-stop shop for all of your rotary needs.
Transform your laser engraving game with Lens Digital, where makers succeed. Unleash your creativity today.
And don't forget, we are proud Lens Digital affiliates as well. If you're shopping, code Riley Black will take $50 off any order of $600 or more. But so then it's like, okay, if I asked like just my accountant, she'd probably be like, maybe you should let that go. But then it's like, well, but that's what I find the most enjoyable. So it's kind of like, all of them are intermingled, and I can't let them go.
And I think I'm starting to do some of the same things. Like I love being a maker, but then I've kind of enjoy the designing piece of it. So I'm really only making 1 or 2 since
Right.
I'm not selling as many of the engraved tumblers right now.
Right.
Designing the files has been fun.
Right.
But I just decided to order a whole lot of blank tumblers from overseas.
Mm-hmm.
But then
a whole lot.
yeah, 44 cases.
Ooh.
Well, actually, I did a buy-in, so not all of them are mine.
Right,
But so
okay.
I'm gonna have all these tumblers. But then I was panicked because I said, okay, we'll just do a case of every color. But then somebody came in and cleaned me out of all the black I had on hand from the first shipment.
Oh no.
So then I'm like, oh, we can't just live on 1 case of black. Like now I'm
Right.
going to go back and order 5 cases of black and hope
Mhm.
that boat gets here
Right.
in time to supplement. So yeah, the whole inventory. And I work
Oh,
my day
right.
job is supply chain, so you would think I'd be good at this.
Right. No.
Yeah, no, not yet.
Yeah.
It's going to take a few cycles.
Right.
I think we're going in the right direction with it.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think it's a good compliment, and I think that's probably why a lot of laser people get into the blanks or the supplies.
Well, and the
as well.
keychain thingies, I mean, again, none of this the plan is actually what I do the very least of now, which is make physical products.
Mhm.
And I started making them, and I was making keychains, and I was making them for like vendors and stuff. And I saw someone in the group had posted the ugly ones, the
think I have
XL
those.
ones.
Yeah,
I don't
the
I
white.
they're my least favorite ones just because how they look, but they work on thicker materials. And so someone had posted those in the group, so I got some of those. And then when I went to go buy more, the place I had originally bought them from didn't have them. And then I saw the like much cuter ones on I ordered a keychains from Sticker Mule on their like, they have their like weekly deals or whatever. And I'm like, oh my God, this would save me so much time, because at the time I was in a consignment shop and I had just made like 75 keychains, and I now have problems with my hands. And so doing the whatever the pliers with the jump rings, it was awful. It was brutal. And so I was like, I really never want to do these again. But keychains were just so good for like material costs and like time and all of that. And then I saw the little thing from Sticker Mule, and I was like, I have to figure this out. And I posted in the group, and someone sent an Alibaba link or whatever, because there was no one really selling them like locally in the States. And then I was gonna buy some, and then there were so many people in the post who were like, I want some too. And I was like, all right, well, let's go, let's sell some. And then I don't do everything, causes a rabbit hole with me. And so then it was like, oh, well, there's these colors, and then I source some from another country, and then there's like all the different colors, and I want to like create ones that actually fit 1/4 inch, because none of them fit 1/4 inch now. And
And then
there's custom
then
colors.
They send her other keychains.
They do.
That's
I order stuff, and then they send me.
Hey, we got these in. These are new.
Yeah.
Would you like some?
And I
Yeah.
do. I would
Yeah.
like some.
Yeah.
And so then I'll be scrolling.
So check us out on keychain things.
I'll be scrolling, and I'm like, oh my God, that's cute. Like the little duck slippers. I mean, who needs duck slipper keychains? Me. That's I need them. Yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that, but just the rabbit hole. You start one thing. It's never really like the plan, and then it just happens. And then like the courses, that was never my plan. That was Heather and Emily bullying me into making one. And I'm glad they did, but it was never like in my plan to like teach people. I always helped as I could. It's a lot easier like when you're scrolling past a post. If I don't know the answer, I can just keep scrolling. If I do know the answer, then I can stop and comment. And so then they're like, oh, do a silhouette one. I was like, I don't know enough to teach somebody. And they're like, yes, you do. I'm like, no, I don't. And then, after like teaching people a couple times, and like even the what really hit it for me was the conferences that I did, the 2 conferences. And at both conferences, there were people who, thank God they told me after the fact, who had like 5 to 10 plus years experience in silhouette. And I taught them something new. And I was like, oh, okay, good. Like, because it's just like, if I would have known that going in, I would have been so self-conscious about everything I did because I was self-taught.
Mhm.
Like, I never claimed to know like the fastest, quickest way. I'm just showing you what has been the fastest, quickest way for me,
Right.
or that I may have found in my search, along the way of how to do it. And so to be teaching someone who I would consider someone who knows way more than me, I would think, just because of their timing. That's when I was like, oh, okay, well, I may not know everything and I may not know more than every silhouette user, but the ones who know a lot aren't my customer anyway.
Mhm.
So yeah, and then it just kind of snowballs, and then you do everything except the thing that you were planning on doing.
Yep. And
That's on a daily.
oh
right?
yeah. And I used to teach the cricket class at one of the
Mm.
chain stores in our
Yeah.
town. And they give you a nice little booklet, a script of, you need
Right.
to teach them A, B, and C. But
Right.
I think there's so much value in learning from someone who actually uses the machine, because you
Right.
do pick up things that
Mhm.
you can use that program every single day, but somebody else is going to do something differently,
Right.
and you'll pick that up too.
Yeah.
So
Well, and it's just like, I remember, what was it? It was a moment for that both Mark and I have had the same thing, where he's used Illustrator for years and I used Silhouette Studios for years before I knew that this existed. And it took me doing a tutorial for someone to message me privately, and they're like, oh, instead of, because I would copy and paste, well, and when you paste, it would paste it off a little bit to the side.
Uh-huh.
Right. Well, and because when I was subtracting that shape, that shape that you subtracted it from would go away. I'm then taking that one that was pasted off to the side and bringing it back over to line it up. And she's like, oh, well, instead of doing copy paste, do copy paste in front. Yeah, mind blown. I was like, what? And then you just select one of them, you do subtract, and then the other one's left behind, and it's exactly where you need it to be.
Yep.
And Mark had that same aha moment from paste in front with Illustrator. I think watching a friend do something on Illustrator, and he was like, wait, how did you do that? And just little things like
Yep.
that like, even if you're like a seasoned user, watching someone else do something and how they do it,
Mhm.
you wouldn't think that, because I mean, again, you right click, paste in front is an option. It's always been there. Have I noticed it? No, I never saw that
Your
it was
eye stops
there.
at paste.
Or I didn't think about what it meant. I didn't think about trying it, and we just, because you get kind of in like your own way of
Mhm.
doing things, and you don't often like explore, is there another way to do this? Because that takes time. And a lot of us are, oh, I don't have time for any of that stuff. So when you watch somebody else do something, you'll find a new way to do something that they wouldn't even really think to tell you about, because it to them, it probably seems obvious. So yeah. So what were you doing before you got the Glowforge?
Mostly epoxy tumblers, but I started in apparel.
Mm.
And we still do apparel to this
Mhm.
day. We in fact, we got a white toner printer last year, I think, to
so.
to
Yeah, it was last year.
enhance and I mean, to expand the apparel, but also to make it easier because you don't have
Right.
to weed.
Yeah.
We could probably have a whole discussion on the white toner printer. It's
Yeah.
it wasn't my wisest investment.
Right.
I don't want to say I regret it, but it's a lot of trouble.
Right. Well,
She
that's the
said-
same reason I haven't bought a sublimation printer,
Yeah.
is because I've heard just like there's a lot of like upkeep, and they can get like jammed or like
Yeah.
clogged, or they're more labor intensive than I
Mhm.
have the patience for. And I really like it. T-shirts, like, just, I hated them so much by the time I quit
Mhm.
that like even doing them with an easier process would probably still be like a trigger for me. So
Well, my process right now for the easiest we've gotten is buying outsourced prints. And I feel like that's a cop out. Like I'm not the creator anymore.
Right.
But my neighbor is on the board of the youth basketball, and he asked me to do their warm-up jerseys, and it snowballed. It went from like 90 to 200, and we're now at 400 double-sided reversible. So that's 4 presses per.
No.
That's 1,600 presses, right? So I'm ordering pre-made screen prints.
She's
Now
like,
I'll do the
"No."
design,
Right.
and then I'll upload
Send it off, right? Yeah.
and they'll send me the prints.
Yeah.
And those are like 3-second presses. So
Mm.
it's a win-win. Like I don't have to print, I don't have to weed, and the press is
Right.
shorter press time. So
yeah.
I'm
Well,
like,
and how's the wearability on those?
good, because it's an actual screen print.
Oh, okay.
So, and the it's made by it's Stahl's Transfer Express. So and that's who I have one of their Hottronics heat presses and everything. So I kind of feel like, I don't know, when it's all connected in some way, it
Yeah.
all works well together.
Symbiotic.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a good support system there too. So
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't had any issues yet. I don't think this is the wood.
Yeah, right. I'm like, it's all epoxy.
Oh yeah, that's the epoxy part.
This is the wood.
Yeah.
So we do the apparel in that regard, but what I've really tried to get away from is those one-off customers. The design
They
everything
take
from
so much
scratch for one
time.
shirt.
Right. Yeah. And on a design that you can't use again, or that isn't gonna like sell well or whatever. Yeah.
So we were pretty heavy in the epoxy tumblers, and I think so. It's actually kind of a cool story with the Glowforge. We ordered it, and it arrived January. And it was right when if you've seen those epoxy pens, they're a little thicker, they're glittery, they basically look like the tumblers, but they put them on a gel pen. People were taping those onto a pool noodle and putting them on their rotisseries, for lack of a better term, if you're familiar with the epoxy process. And so what we did was, when we got this Glowforge, we had just started to learn how to make the pens. And I had literally bought a big piece of PVC pipe and these pencil holders that I was going to glue on the outside to turn my pens.
Yeah.
Well, we said, well, wait a minute, there's got to be a better way. So I created these 2 discs where I put dowel rods through holes in the discs and created these tumbler turner adapters for the pens, put them on Etsy. I had never been on Etsy before.
Yeah.
And they exploded.
Wow.
And I everybody says, oh, I paid for my whatever machine and how much. But my gross revenues from that one product on Etsy, 3 months, Glowforge paid.
Wow.
And literally they were acrylic or I mean, here's the acrylic premium version, or you could have the cheap MDF version.
Right.
And I think they were $10 a piece.
Right. I mean, you make people's lives easier, and they'll pay, especially for that price point. Like, it's worth it for them and what they save. And then you obviously have a tool that they don't have, because then they can't make it themselves easily.
So then that kind of it snowballed there. So I'm like, okay, well, now we've made the pen turner, so now what's the next step? So then we made this little drying rack, and then we made the display. So it's like I kind of got into this market of tools for crafters, not just on the making side, but also like, hey, you're going to a craft show, you need a display thing. Right. So then we started doing the craft displays, the QR code signs. Like, it was organic in the way that it progressed.
Find a problem, make a solution.
Right. Yeah. Well, and that's how you mentioned him when we were just talking before we even started, the computer creations guy on YouTube. We had him on, and his suggestion, because we had him on right at the beginning of like kind of talks of like a recession. And there was a post in one of the Facebook groups about, how are you feeling about the possible recession, whatever. And he commented, and he was like, man, I've been through a million recessions. And like, he just had like a great answer for it. And one thing that he said, he was like, one big advice he had for making it through the recession was finding a problem and selling the solution. And he's like, you solve people's problems. It doesn't matter if you're in a recession or not. So, you find those kind of products that do those things, and that's going to help you get through, those times. And he's like, sure, are things going to slow down? Yes. But, there's ways to combat that. But the problem solving is, and I mean, one of my best-selling designs that a lot of people actually asked me to make, but I didn't want to because I hate kerf, was
ditto.
Right. I overthink it, and I self-sabotage myself on kerf all the time. And then I later found out that my machine was messing with me too, and that's why sometimes kerf wasn't working. But anyway, it was those the watch band stand, because it was a problem I had, because I had watch bands all over my freaking desk, and I'm like, I gotta figure out something for these. And then all the ones I had seen, it's right there.
Yep.
All of the ones I had seen only held like 10, and I'm like, I got way more than 10. And I know that there's someone who also has way more than 10 because of how well they're selling. That if you have any kind of seasonal ones, I know you have more than, so those are ones I thought about selling. But then my problem with that was the best way to ship them is to flat pack them. But then if I flat pack them, I have to trust them to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
And if you pressure fit it, and if they force it and it's not in there right, then you'll break it. And I'm not going to trust the customer, because then it's my fault if it broke because it wasn't easy enough to put together. Or you ship it already put together, and well, now it goes from like this to this, and it's odd shaped, with the pieces on the end and the piece in the middle. And then I'm like, okay, now I have to hope that it gets there and that it also doesn't break this way, and it's going to be more expensive to ship it to them. So I was like, I did a couple of them, and I'm like, this is not fun. And I like anything gives me anxiety, but if something gives me unnecessarily more anxiety, I just don't do it. And that's one of those things. I'm like, let me just sell the file, and hopefully someone will start making these and selling them so that I don't have to.
Right.
So our number one seller on Etsy has been our wine stopper stand. So again, a friend of mine in the craft world started making the beaded stoppers, and she said, I'm going to a craft show, want a display, came up with the concept. Well, it's got two sides. And so I literally have a file, and because we started making these on the Glowforge, going everywhere from like 0097 all the way like to 117. Like I just created and saved a new file every time I made a new curve size.
Yeah.
And invariably, this one's too tight, this one's too loose. Because if it's a little bit off, they'll wobble. If it's too tight, they'll break it and potentially cut themselves. Well, I actually had somebody contact me today, and they said, well, do you sell the file for this? And I'm like, well, which one? I've got like 500 for just
that.
that.
That's also, I didn't want to sell it either, but then I had so many people asking me, and it was the first file simply because of the amount of requests that I got that I was willing to sell because it had kerf. Everything else that I made for myself with kerf, I'm like, no, because I barely know it myself. And this is coming from like, I'm a teacher now, as weird as that is to say. I can't teach you kerf. I can't teach it to myself. I barely know it. And as soon as I think I know it, I fuck it up. So I can't help you, especially from a computer. Like I literally say that like in my description, I'm pretty sure, like, I can't help you, but go look at Mark's video on Big Blue Laser Designs on kerf. Because, that was my fear, is like, I want to be able to provide support, but like, I can't help you if you can't, figure it out. And I made the file for 1/4 inch, and I've had several people, ask for 1/8 inch, and I'm like, sorry, bro. Like, I don't want to make it again. And like, just if your 1/8 inch is different than my 1/8 inch, I'm going to sell you the 1/8 inch one, and it's not going to fit your 1/8 inch. And then we're going to have problems. And so
that's my fear with the file, because even just the Tumblr
now
file.
I will say, so my friend Tony, who actually makes the kerf tool, and if you haven't tried that, it's pretty awesome.
I did buy one early on. I wonder if that's the one I bought.
It might have been. So Tony, he actually got away from making files, but he was starting to sell files, and he was selling them with that many like slots, so that if you bought any of his files, you didn't have to worry about what measurement you had. You just had to use like the kerf tool or your calipers or whatever, find out which slot you need. You go and open that like zip file or that file.
I think I did buy a file from him.
And so, I mean, with yours, you don't necessarily, if you already have most of them, you could tell them, like, I mean, you could package it that way. Like it's, and again, if it's a simpler design where, there's not a million like tabs and pieces and stuff, then you could just, they choose whichever, hole they want, and then that fits their material. Just give them all of them and let them figure out which one fits their material the best.
That is smart.
Yeah. And then you can up it a little bit, because then, your tolerance is huge as far as what it fits.
Yeah.
Mine, it's like, this is what my material was. Hope you know how to adjust for kerf. Because I can't help you, and I'm not going to change it. So.
Yeah, it's amazing what we fear when we try something new, right?
Mhm.
Because that's the first thing I thought of when the girl asked me if I would sell the file, and I was like,
Right.
oh, like the thought of
Right.
like dealing with the kerf issues. Because even like the
Yes.
little tiny rectangular Tumblr name tag,
Yeah.
I've had a lot of. I mean, and I'm very helpful,
Right.
but a lot of people are like, oh, it's a little too short, a little too long, and I'm like, okay, well, it could be a kerf thing. I mean, I measured it against name brand, not name brand,
Right.
but you might have to adjust it a little bit. And they're
Right.
like, oh, adjust it how? And I'm like,
Yeah.
just adjust
Right.
the length,
Yeah.
not the width, just the length. How? And I'm like, oh, there's just so
Yeah.
many different levels of people that are purchasing the files.
Right. And that's something that's hard too, is that,
Yes.
and then something else I've ran into is the people who don't know their own skill level,
Mm-hmm.
and they may think it's higher than it actually is.
Mm.
And so then it's difficult area to navigate in that, because again, those are the same ones who then want to kind of blame the file.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's
Right.
really hard to then like, okay, so this is my best-selling file. I've never had an issue.
Right.
But sure, let's tackle this and see what's going on. You just gotta keep all that in and then type something else out. But yeah, so it's hard because you don't know what you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And like if they overthink it, or sometimes they don't, if the aspect ratio, because you said just the length,
Mm-hmm.
well, if they don't know that that's on, and or if they don't know how to turn it off if it is already on, and that kind of stuff, like I'd have people who would adjust frames and stuff, but like that you have to, if you're adjusting one thing in most files, you have to adjust everything in order for it to work.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd adjust, like, enlarge one thing and not
Right.
everything else, or not do it all the exact same amount, and it's just not gonna line up or work anymore.
And
so
then the different softwares. So on the cut file, I was smart enough to put a 1-inch square as a reference. Like if this isn't 1 inch, then you have an import
Right.
problem, or not problem,
Right,
but we
yeah.
need to account for it.
right.
But I never thought to do it on the engraving files. And somebody in one of the groups mentioned that we should be doing that. I'm like, well, yeah, that makes
Right.
sense.
Yeah.
Because just like you saw when we were working, even though I created that file in that program, exported it, when I brought it back
Right.
in, it wasn't the same size.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
so frustrating.
Well, and I realized, I think it was part of my kerf issue. Now, mind you, I had these same issues on the Glow Forge, so it's not 100% my mirror's fault. But I realized I had never, because a lot of the stuff that I did, I didn't need a ton of precision. And the amount that it was off never really mattered on whatever the projects I was doing, the layering or whatever, or it'd be a little bit off, but it wouldn't like make or break, the project. And I don't remember what it was that I was doing. And I needed it to be precise,
Mhm.
and it wasn't. And then I found out, I ended up like measuring, I think I did like a 1-inch square, 2-inch square or something, and measured it, and it was not 2 inches.
Mm.
And I created it in Lightburn, so it also wasn't an import issue
Mhm.
either. And it was like, oh, and I don't even remember what it was that I had to change, but I had to adjust something in like my laser settings in Lightburn and fix it so that it actually was like, the 2 inches that I said it
Yes.
should be comes out as 2 inches, because it'd be a little bit off. Oh, and then what was even better was the little measuring tape that I was using to measure if it was 2 inches or not was not an accurate tape measure.
Oh no.
This is what the universe does to me. Okay. I find the problem. I think I fixed the problem. And then I realize, oh, no, you have another problem. Yeah. So you do all of that with kerf. And then, when you're messing with 0.00 whatever,
Mhm.
it's not gonna, and you go through a lot of cussing and throwing things and things not fitting when you're absolutely positive that you've measured and remeasured and
And
measured,
crying.
and it's
Tears. Tears. Real life tears.
I think we've shed a few of those ourselves. We can really.
Good
Yeah.
grief, yeah.
I mean, when it comes to kerf, like I feel like I have a really good understanding of it, but I will say somebody posted yesterday. I don't know, my days are blending. It was a red disc with a green Christmas tree in it, and it was perfect. It was so tight in there. I was like, I don't know if I know kerf that well
Right.
because that was really, really good.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to go home and I'm going to try it.
Well, and then you run into things like I was making these super fancy awards for she's it was in Miami. She's local to Miami. But she was like a food blogger. And she would make these awards for like the top restaurants in Miami. Well, there was 20 something of them. And I decided to go with red pearl acrylic. Well, a lot of the specialty acrylics, especially depending on where they're manufactured, different manufacturers have different tolerances on the difference in sheets, and from sheet to sheet, and even from like one sheet from like the end to the front or whatever. Well, in trying to figure out kerf on those, I found out that, so I like peeled back, the masking to on like the most inconspicuous spot of the award so that I could find the kerf for that award. I knew that it can vary so much. And again, especially there's 20 of them, that I needed to measure every one because I wanted them to fit well. I need the stand not to come off. I do not want to mess with glue. I need it to just go. I need it to pressure fit and stay and not break. So I needed that perfect pressure fit. Well, I measured all of them on like that little side. Well, then when I would go to put them together, it wouldn't work. And then I found out, so my base was, I think, 2 inches or 2.5 inches. There, on some of them, in just that 2.5 inch distance, it was like 0.02 or 0.002 or enough to where unless I did some crazy math where I could do it tighter on one side and looser on the other, there was no way I was going to get a perfect pressure fit on these because of that tolerance and variance, not even from sheet to sheet, from like one side of this award to the other. And I like found a whole new beast that I was not prepared for. So I just had to do it like the tightest I possibly could on the thickest part of that material. And thankfully it was a double layered acrylic. So then I kind of like, I had like 2 bases to really make sure that it like stayed together. And then I put like a tiny bit of like clear glue on the bottom. And again, because it was the 2 bases and that one top layer was like a solid opaque color, it kind of hid that. But yeah, as soon as you figure it out, or at least you think you do, then you find a whole new thing that you can't prepare yourself for.
Well, somebody I saw recently mentioned putting like little tiny moons. Now, I mean, I think if you can really nail down the kerf, then you should be fine. But if you're if you have a material fluctuation like that, instead of it being a perfect rectangle, just put just a little nugget in there. I don't know how to describe it. Like if you were to take an oval and just have the oval peek over into your hole, just your rectangular hole a little tiny bit, maybe at the top of the left and the top of the bottom, or the bottom of the right.
Oh, like notches.
Yeah, but inside the hole, so they be coming in to kind of just give it that tighter fit in that area.
I gotta see that. I'm a visual person. I'm not picking it up.
Okay,
I'm not picking up what you're putting down. No,
and I might not be explaining it as well as I think I am in my mind. So, yeah.
So you have a day job as well, though, right? Has this always been like a side thing? Okay.
Yeah.
And do you want to keep it that way, or?
Well, if anybody from my company's listening,
I know, right?
We know that struggle all too well.
You had to do that for a long time.
I think that if I had some catalyst in my life, like I don't know, a monetary windfall or something, like a big product takeoff that would give me a glimpse of hope that it would be successful. I don't think we're there yet.
Right.
I do know that it can be done. It takes a lot of hard work. I see a lot of successful people around me in the industry, but for me, the stability, I got to keep the day job.
Yeah.
But, and I've been with my company for 24 years now.
Yeah. Kind of helps.
Yeah. I've got, it's a comfort. I'm not on autopilot by any
Right.
stretch. My
Right.
boss is always throwing these crazy projects
Right,
at me.
right.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But it's not something that I have to, like, I don't take the stress of it home with me.
Right.
Like I can.
Yeah, that was the
do it.
point for me. You know, I was working my my corporate job, you know, for oil and gas accounting, and the accounting part was so not me, but I had an amazing boss for a long time. And then they did layoffs and most of my department, and that amazing boss was gone. And so then, you know, just things started to kind of go down, you know, culture kind of changed and I just wasn't loving it anymore. And I was doing just enough not to get fired. And I kind of was also like in the back of my head, like, I'd be okay if you did. Not really, please don't.
Right.
But like, I just, you know, I was just not happy anymore. The things that I enjoyed about it weren't there anymore. And what I loved about her was that she knew that like I really like to be creative. So she'd find, you know, whatever those ways, even if it was like a PowerPoint for something, I could be, you know, find some way to be creative. And I would love making that shit. Like
I'm so telling you,
we're
you two are-
twinsies.
oh my God. Is it like looking in a mirror for you both? I mean,
It's gonna take that one project that your boss throws at you that you're like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm out.
Well, and it
I'm
like
gonna go
so
all in.
well for me it was management changing. It was, you know, just a lot of things changing, and then
and then a husband that wants to come back home.
yeah, and then
those
he
are
was
catalysts. Those,
yeah,
those were
exactly.
things that pushed
COVID
you.
for a lot of
Yeah.
people were
Sure.
like,
Yeah.
oh, I lost. They didn't want to lose their job, but they
Right.
lost their job, and they were like, well, fuck it, why not? And
Right.
so, you know, then they try it, or they're already doing something, and then COVID happened. Like I started a couple years before COVID, didn't I? Yeah, it was about a year before COVID.
We moved to Florida in 18.
Right. And I bought
That's when it
my
started.
GoForge in October, November of 18.
Yeah.
And then through 19, I was just still starting to learn it and figuring out what I liked doing, what I didn't like doing. And then as soon as COVID hit, then it like took off like wildfire. But yeah, it took, you know, him wanting to move, because I mean I worked at that job for 12 years and I got paid really well. And I also went to school part-time to college, because they would pay for your degree as long as it you know went towards like what you were doing.
sure.
And I had to stay if I didn't want to pay back like the last like 6 months to a
Right.
year of college. And so that was also keeping me there. And then funny enough,
When you
I
were
ended
close to
up
graduation
right.
too.
And I ended up quitting like as soon as I like graduated, or right before.
Yeah, we had to
I
travel back for
graduated.
the ceremony.
Yeah, so I finished like I took a summer class, and I was really anxious because of like, if I don't pass this, we're not gonna be living here for me to like retake something.
Right.
And then we ended up moving in August, and then we had to come back for me to graduate in December, and I did actually have to end up paying, you know, some of that back. But yeah, it took, you know, me being unhappy and him wanting to come back home, and
and the opportunity back here too.
right. Yeah.
Sure.
And he had a job lined up back here.
Yeah.
So it was like, oh, okay. And then I was like, well, maybe then we can see like where, you know, the t-shirts thing takes us, you know, at the time. And here we are
With our own show.
fucking weird. It's crazy. Like you can't plan any of that. You really just have to kind of like ride it as it goes. Because again, you couldn't have planned any of those like files that just like took off.
Right.
Because I mean, there's probably a million other files that you made for yourself that didn't.
Right.
So,
You think you're going to be fantastic and you
Right.
don't sell a single one.
Right. Exactly. That's rude.
What's wrong with my file?
Right. It's awesome, and you should think so too.
Exactly.
Right.
It'll take off when you least expect it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll
Like a
just be
TikTok shop.
You'll just be
Right?
sitting home, and
Yeah.
then all of a
Good
sudden
grief.
your phone will blow up. You're like, what's going on? I designed that a year ago.
Right.
Yeah. So are you one of the ones who's gone viral? on the
No,
TikTok
no,
shop?
no, no.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually, I funny enough, I was trying to sign up for the TikTok shop right before it went crazy,
Yeah.
and I just got it approved today.
Mm.
I was stuck in this endless cycle of tax verification. So it
Oh,
was
right.
like, welcome, you're a business. We, and they're sending me these reminders, you're not
Yeah.
posting enough content. You'll sell a lot more products if you post more. And I'm like, you can't sell anything because you're not verifying my tax info.
Right.
Yeah, it's taken weeks.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And they like sent me something to like, oh, you should sign up or
Mhm.
whatever. And I started to, and then like I've gone viral once and it kind of sucked.
Mhm.
It's awesome, but it also kind of sucks because it never happens when it's convenient for
Right.
you. It was oddly enough, it was TikTok's fault too, because she posted it on TikTok.
Yeah.
But I was literally selling the last bit of the ornaments, and then she made a video about the inappropriate ornaments, and then they went viral. And I didn't want to make any more. I was newly pregnant. No one knew I was pregnant. I was miserable.
Were these
I was
the snowflake
nauseous.
It was all
So
of them.
that was one of them.
Okay.
But the one that really caught people was the dick ornament with the Santa hat.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah. So and then there was several. I mean, she
Jingle
bought
balls.
like, oh yeah, the jingle balls. Yeah.
Yeah.
And had like a little like bell.
Yeah, I was
on
running.
it.
I was running the shop.
Yeah. Well, and he actually. So it funny enough, it was a girl boss event.
Who
But
better?
right.
Who better?
You-
That day
you
I
weren't
identified.
well. Yeah.
That day
And so, and I again, COVID had started getting better, which was why we even decided to even try, to get pregnant. And then it happened literally immediately.
Mhm.
And we weren't necessarily prepared for it to happen that fast because we tried really hard with the first one.
Yeah.
Is that you too?
Oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, it was. I mean, so much so that on the announcement, he was like,
I was
I
legit
hate to say
surprised.
it,
I was
but
legit- I was like,
how?
how?
I was like,
I was
no,
like,
we
how?
did.
That was just a practice run.
Yeah,
Yeah.
One time.
Yeah.
yeah.
For
it
baby number
was.
2, it was one time.
Yeah.
So be careful out there because it
yeah,
can happen.
right.
on the
It
first
really
time.
can happen
When
on
you struggle
one
with
time.
your first, be prepared. The second one.
Right. Yeah.
problem.
It's shot right in there. Yeah. And then so, I was pregnant and then COVID was ramping up again. It was like that second or third wave
yeah.
or something.
Yep.
And I was like, let me not add any more stress to this. So I sent him in my place to sell for
And
it.
with
And
the
she
mask
literally
and these beautiful eyelashes, I fit right in.
Shave
The
beard.
mask. The mask. I didn't have to
Mask.
shave
That's
the
right.
beard.
The mask.
All
Yeah,
right.
I had to wear the mask the whole time.
No, he's not allowed to shave. It's
Nope.
creepy.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Mm.
I look a lot younger when I
We
It's
did
like,
it
it's like the
once.
dude on the How to Get Away with Murder show when he
Mm.
shaved.
Oh yeah,
I bet.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I immediate regret. He shaved once for
Yeah.
Halloween costumes because
Uh-huh.
only ones I could find that I really wanted to do, they all needed face painting. And so that face painting doesn't really work with a beard well.
Right.
And so he had to shave and he shaved and it was immediate regret.
Yeah.
It was like,
Oh.
oh, put it back.
Even
put it
my
back on.
even my boss was like, I can't take you seriously until you go to facial hair.
Yeah, no. And he wanted to kiss me and it wasn't stubbly, which felt weird. And then it was stubbly and that felt weird because it was different stubble.
Then made me want to kiss her even more.
Oh, he did. Oh, it
Oh.
was so bad.
Rub his face.
No. And like
Really
part of
bad.
me loves those videos where they like shave and they like scare the kids. So the kids are like, whoa,
Right.
because it's so drastically different. Part of me like wants him to do that, but I really don't because it takes him like, it would be what, 3 weeks
3
to
weeks.
a month or so to get
3
back
weeks
to
to get-
this.
Well, back to this, yeah, but 3 weeks to get like some stubble going, like a little to
Mm.
be able to like line it up to where you
Yeah.
can see a difference. It'll be 3 weeks.
Yeah, no, that's too long.
Yeah.
I don't like it. It looks like a creeper. No. What were we talking about before we got on?
Oh.
Going
the
viral.
Beards?
Going
Oh
viral
yeah,
on
that was
TikTok.
right. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I charged. This is something I told Emily to do when she went viral for her pencils. I'm like, charge more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because if half the people buy them than what they were buying them, you still may, if you like up the price, if you double it or whatever, if you double it and half the people buy, you made the same.
Yeah.
Right.
with half the work. I'm like, keep raising your prices until it slows down to that like manageable amount. And I'm because of my anxiety and my like fear of like people thinking I'm trying to be like a con artist who's just trying to get all the money out of them that I can. I even made a video and like let them know like, hey, you can get these cheaper somewhere else. And thankfully I sold the files. So I'm like, if you know somebody who has a laser, tell them to buy my file and they can make them for you at a cheaper price. But this is my price that it needs to be in order for me to be willing to make them. And I charged, I think, $20 for the single layers, especially those fuck flakes, because those fucking sucked.
Yeah.
Listen, that design was beautiful and it did great and it sold well for pretty much everyone who sold them.
Except for the machines that caught on fire.
Yeah, those too. Well, because there were so many tiny little pieces and those same tiny little pieces were pain in the ass to like get them all out and like demasking it. The masking, it would never come off. Yeah. And like I outsourced those to Mindy because Mindy didn't mind making them. And I was like, cool. You make them, I'll pay you for them. And I like, I charged her, I think 50% or whatever. I paid her 50% and then I still, was able to make some profit from it. And so was she. But yeah, no, I was like, I can't make those. And I made like lower quantities of the ones that were like more layers and that kind of stuff. And so it's going viral. It can be great, but it can be really, really
like
stressful.
I remember you going crazy over that time. I'm like, well, listen, how many can you make out of a sheet? And then let's limit the quantity.
Right.
Let's just make it like a limited run of these because you weren't planning to make
the other
them anyway.
thing too. Don't make your quantities unlimited.
Yeah,
make
and I mean,
like
so
what you can make
the pricing is because I've been watching a lot of business videos on YouTube and stuff.
For your
that is one of the things. If you're selling a lot of product, like to where it's hard to keep up with making them.
Yeah,
you're not charging enough.
Right.
You have to find that sweet spot of where you charge just enough to where they're selling, but they're not overselling and you're like working your butt off for, there's more money to be made off of that one product.
Yeah.
So you have to find that happy medium.
Yeah.
It's good advice.
Pricing is so difficult.
Yeah, it is.
It is.
So
It really
hard.
is.
As soon as I think I got the perfect price, then I'm like second.
Well, it's also not necessarily value, but market.
Yeah.
Because if everyone is selling,
what is it
tumbler,
that analogy with the water bottles, that same $3 water bottle can be sold for, it's $3 at the gas station, but it's $6 at the movie theater. It's $10 at the stadium. It's where you are. It's not even necessarily the product you have. And then I saw one the other day where that Heather actually had shared on her Instagram, and these people were buying Payless shoes thinking that they were designer.
So that was actually like years ago.
Yeah. And
it was
like
boutique.
they
did a boutique. They took off all the and it was like was it Payless spelled? It was a play on Payless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone, from what you call it, critics,
all the fashion like
influencers, they were all there and raving about these shoes, and they were just Payless shoes.
Yeah,
it's all. I mean, I hate to say it, but look at the Yeezys. Those are ugly.
Oh my god, right?
Those are horrible. Yeah. But people are spending thousands of dollars. Those are horrible.
I don't. They look like alien.
I mean, listen. I looked at them and the hype. I'm like, maybe I'll get a pair. I mean, they're ugly, but I'll get a pair because it's like a status thing. And then that's another thing too that we've been talking a lot lately about as well, as far as pricing, is when everyone's selling this tumbler at $20 and you come in at $40, you get no complaints on the design. Everyone looks at it and falls in love with it. The people that buy it at 20 or even 15, they're like, oh, this J is a little crooked, or like this. Then they start nitpicking.
Yeah.
So you attract a different customer at a different price point.
That's true. Yeah. So because it's like and I mean, I've experienced this as well, but it's like you send that $50 invoice to the customer and they're questioning what this fee is, what that fee is, how long it's going to take for you to get it back, whatever. You send that $500 invoice to, a customer and they pay it immediately and they're like, let me know when it's done.
Yep.
Not all of them are like that across the board, but it's the ones that are in the cheaper price range. usually have higher expectations.
Yeah.
So, it's
Yeah.
finding that. And
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I actually wouldn't, I would love to someday like make these crazy milestones, sell them once for like $400 to some like, celebrity or whatever, and never
Yes,
have to make it
right.
again and sell the file so somebody else can, that would be like perfect. Cause
Right.
I found out early on that like, I don't like production work. So if now tumblers, I don't think I'd mind so much because they are so easy, and I do love the like 5-second cleaning you do and how it like comes to life.
Yeah.
Those I wouldn't mind so much of like, oh, if someone ordered 20 tumblers or whatever, but 20 signs and keychains, again, that's one thing I don't really mind like production work. But if it's something I had to make, signs, if I had to make them over and over again, I get really bored. And so, it's finding what you enjoy making and then like leaning into that and seeing how you can make that like successful.
And it's funny because it's almost opposite, right? Because like a sign, there's more hands-on work to do, where like a tumbler, the machine does the work. So I would feel like you get tired of the tumbler because it's more tedious.
No,
but you don't. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But
well, and I mean, just because, and I'll knock to the lovely Pyburn, they make it so easy. So not a knock to my other laser.
What's the time code here so I can put in their
their ad right after.
The ad right
The other rotary that I have, it works and it was free, but it was it needed a lot more adjusting on my part that I didn't enjoy doing, especially like trying to switch over cups. And if you needed to change anything, it was more labor intensive as far as having to adjust things. And then, so I didn't love doing like 20 tumblers on that. But then doing 20 tumblers on
that was the water I just drank.
the aliens landed and they might have infiltrated John over here. So loud. I wonder if probably didn't pick up on.
I hope not.
I hope it did.
I cut this whole thing out. I thought it did, and then you said something about it.
It scared me. But with the Pyburn, it's so easy to switch them out and then just wash them, and you like. They look so good when you try and when you take pictures of all of them together, and it just there's the few things that I actually enjoy doing.
Now, are you running the V4 or the grip?
V4. I don't have
the grip.
Shh, don't say that.
Stan, man.
You need the grip.
You definitely need the grip.
Everyone's saying we need the grip, Stan. Man, I know you guys listen and watch.
The grip is a winner.
Yeah.
Can I just give a discount? I don't need any like help or push into buying something new.
No.
So it's
so, and this might be helpful to somebody, because I've posted this probably a dozen times in the group already. But I had bought the Pyburn secondhand. It was an American Pie. It was beautiful. Why I didn't know it was really, really naive. I didn't know that it had to be configured for the machine. So it sat on the
didn't
shelf.
know that either.
Yeah, and so for I bought it, and for 6 months it sat there unused. And when I finally got around to using it, it was the wrong one.
Machine.
Right. So panic mode. Long story short, ended up with a new one, but I opted, and it was a timing thing because the grip had launched, but they were so back ordered. So I was like, instant gratification. I can get the V4 now, but then also long-term versatility. So I can, going with the Omni, having the grip and the V4, I can do multiple things.
Right.
Now, I will say I have not ever gone back to the V4 since I've installed my grip, but I haven't had a need to, because I'm not doing objects that would benefit from switching back. Right. But I have it if I need it.
Yeah.
Man, that grip. It's so good.
It looked really cool. I saw it in action. So on our Pyburn, I've been the one who's messed with it the most. Yeah. But I saw the grip in action.
Mainly because I hate taking the blades out of the machine.
Yeah. She doesn't do any like.
Well, I have a second laser now, so yeah, because of the. I don't know if you want to talk.
Yeah, I do want to talk about that, but I didn't know if you wanted to talk about
I'm
that.
open. I'm an open book.
I mean,
we'll talk about the secret in a second.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but I'm not. Again, I hate to say it. I'm not opposed to a second machine. But anyway,
You said it.
so yeah, no, I
Everyone
said it.
heard that.
Right?
Everyone did.
That's
John is
recorded.
not opposed.
But not
to
another
a
nine.
second-
Not another
No,
nine.
I
Just
don't
something
know.
for the something for the pirate.
Well,
A
and so I
seven.
mean,
Seven.
talking about a 7.
Mhm.
So I have a 9, and I went. My 9 was down once when, of course, because you need something last minute, and that's when your machine decides to not cooperate or whatever, and then you add in stress and all that to the
Mhm.
mix. So I actually had to use Emily's 7 to cut stuff for one of the last conferences that we did. And I actually, especially because I end up cutting most of the things I buy. I mean, all of my acrylic cord over there is 12 the Glowforge size sheets. And so I don't really need, for the most part, the whole bed of the 9. What?
We have a Riley Black design special 9, maybe for sale.
Special 9?
Special limited edition. The only Riley
What?
Black design 9 out there.
Sure. What
We can
makes
mar-
it Riley Black?
We can mark because it's our machine.
Oh,
and
okay.
we're selling it.
But see where we're going to go is
We
that
can mark it
having
up.
2 machines and having one set up for your rotary and for
Yeah,
flat.
Right,
see,
but
that's
we
what
get
I
two
want.
7s.
Yeah.
Mm.
No.
Sell the 9 and get 2 7s.
No.
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 Save
stop
space.
it.
It'll be in the same space.
But
No.
I
Where
so
are we gonna-
Maybe. Okay.
See?
Maybe.
See?
when you have a lot of cuts to do though, that the bed of the 9 because you can
Right.
fit 3 of those standard sheets so
Right.
easily. I
Next
could
to each
barely
other.
get 2
Yeah.
in the 7, and
Right.
they had to be vertical.
Well,
and,
and it was
hung over.
so I was using her machine and I was doing like my small cuts, and it was nice because it was all like nice and close, and there was no leaning over and moving
Mhm.
stuff, and like it was actually the laser head didn't have to go as far, and I was like, oh, I was surprised that I actually
Hey
liked
Danny, is there a 2 for
the
1?
smaller machine. No, there's
Buy one, get
definitely
one
not.
half?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
My
Okay.
the kiddos texting.
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Feel free.
So, do we want to talk about why you have 2
Sure.
machines?
Yeah, it's kind of the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
So I broke the cardinal rule, and
Mm.
I
Do
left.
not leave your laser
Yeah,
unattended.
especially when you're
Oh, I thought
cutting
you got high on
acrylic.
your own supply.
Huh?
No, not
thought
that
you-
cardinal rule.
I thought you
no.
started making stuff for yourself.
Oh.
So no, this was the night before Easter, and I was doing a large job for a client in Nashville,
Mhm.
and they're ornament type things, and you can
Yeah.
fit 35 of them on a 24 by 36 roughly sheet.
Yeah.
I was on my 5th sheet of it, I believe it was, and the cut time was at about an hour and 20 minutes, and the average time was about an hour and 38.
Mhm.
I hadn't had an issue. I hadn't had a flare.
Right.
Everything had been
Nothing.
fine.
Yeah.
And I ran upstairs for a minute. So my workshop's in the basement,
Mm.
and it was late at night. And I should take a step back and say that we had shut down after 4 and gone
Yeah.
to dinner as a family. My mom was in town,
Mhm.
and I was like, it's early enough. Just one more sheet, right? So
Famous
came
last
up.
words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was tired. I came up and I sat on the couch, and I fell asleep. And Trish and my mom, because I would never leave the laser,
Right.
they thought, oh, it's done, right?
Right.
She just came up.
Right.
So much so that when they woke me up, I went to bed. So it had caught fire and then continued to burn. I didn't discover this until the next morning.
Oh my
So
god.
this happened from like 11:30 at night into the morning. And as I went down into the basement, 'cause I woke up, I was like, oh my God, I left the laser
Laser.
on. I mean, this is like, I can't even believe I say that I admit to this because it's so awful. But yeah, I
Yeah.
did this. So
well,
I
and
go
I
down.
mean, think about it. Have you left before to, especially in the basement? Do you have a bathroom in the basement?
Yep.
So you've left to
Yeah.
go to the
Yeah.
bathroom,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
I've done that. I
Yeah.
mean, every time I do it, I'm like, you shouldn't do this, but it'll be fine. And
Yeah.
like, I weigh my odds. I usually like, especially when it's engraving,
Mhm.
because I've never seen like at least a flare up on my machine during engrave. Now it's still possible though. So don't
Absolutely.
get too, again, don't do what
not
we're
do the
doing. Because even during engraving, the masking can lift,
Mhm.
and that's what can create a fire if the masking is loose for whatever reason. Also, I love to cut matte acrylic, and matte acrylic doesn't adhere as always as nicely to masking. That anytime I have the masking come up on my acrylic, it's on matte sheets. And so, I mean, we've all walked away to
Mhm.
go to the bathroom, to whatever. We don't feel like pausing it, or we'll be right back, or whatever. So, yeah.
No, I wasn't right back. So the next morning I went downstairs and I could smell the lingering campfire smell.
Yeah.
But the good thing, the positive,
And was it acrylic?
it was
Oh,
a
yeah.
giant sheet of black acrylic, and I also hadn't swapped out the masking. Because I usually put my own white
Oh,
masking
right.
on, and it was the standard brown.
Mhm.
So I don't know if that contributed, but similar to the fuck flicks that we were talking
Yeah.
about, this was a pretty intricate design.
Mm.
Yeah, I it involves a name that I don't want to say. So
Right.
yeah. So yeah, there are a lot of factors went into it, but so I came down the stairs. It smelled like a campfire, and it kind of hit me, and I just turned in slow motion, and I looked in the direction of the laser, and I saw the window because I have an acrylic sheet in place of the screen kind of thing, and where I vent out the window, and it was just all black smoke. But the good thing is I had a really good exhaust fan, and it sucked everything out.
Oh,
Like there
okay.
wasn't smoke in the
I
room.
was gonna
There
say.
was some residual, like
Right.
the machine isn't airtight,
Right.
but the flames, the smoke, everything was contained within the machine and sucked
Wow.
out the window.
I was gonna say, I was just gonna ask this the next morning. How did no one, like, it must have been contained to, was it contained to the machine?
Yeah.
Completely in the
So
machine. Now
it's-
the
And then
glass
outside, and I mean, listen, when we cut anyway, it smells like a campfire.
Right. Yeah.
So you're not going to think anything of it
Right.
necessarily,
Right.
even if you smell it.
Right. And I mean, also
depending on,
I
if
mean,
your neighbors are
depending on-
used to it,
Yeah.
or
or
whatever.
someone
Yeah.
smokes
And I-
weeds overnight or something like that.
Yeah,
the smoke, like this the glass on the lid shattered, and I think that's
Mhm.
where a lot of the aroma was also coming
Okay.
from
Right,
after the
right.
fact, because the fire started in the upper left corner, because I know that's where the design was set to finish, and when I walked away, that's all that was left. So it had to have started there, and then the laser homed in the far right, so it smoldered and it just kind of melted everything
Right.
and caused the damage, but it never went back to the laser head, so that was saved.
Right.
But the heat and stuff, I think, is what shattered the glass.
Right.
So fortunately, the fire put itself out. I think it
Wow.
ran out of combustible materials.
Right.
But it was pretty extensive damage. And
Yeah.
Mom and Trish were getting ready for Easter because it was now Easter Sunday.
Oh my God.
And I came up the steps
White
from
as
the
a
basement.
ghost.
Yeah.
Like I
Oh.
thought she was gonna
I-
go to the floor,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
and all she could say was,
I've lost it. I've lost everything.
Oh
I
my
was
God.
like,
"We had
oh,
a fire." She came upstairs and she said, "Trish, we had a fire."
yeah.
And
And all she kept saying is, "We still have the house. Like the house
Right.
didn't
I
burn
was
down."
saying-
Like
say
she
you
tried
have-
to focus on the
luckily
positive.
Well, you have
didn't
to
lose
find the
everything.
positive.
Right.
Yeah. Because
you
it
very
being-
easily could have
Absolutely,
lost everything.
I could have lost everything, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
at least in
we
that
could have
moment,
lost our life. 'cause
Right.
Yeah.
we-
Well, because you guys are
Right.
about to go to bed.
right.
I mean,
Well,
when
technically
house
you went
fires
to bed because it
happen,
was the next
yeah.
morning.
And
Yeah.
great, because when house fires happen in the middle of the night, that's
Yeah.
when they kill people,
Mhm.
Right.
because they're not awake and coherent, and
I slept through the
can-
whole thing.
Yeah.
Everybody did.
Yeah.
Right.
Like everybody. Like
My
Yeah.
smoke detector didn't even go off in my
Right.
basement. That's how little smoke there was in the
So you're
house.
gonna have
Right.
to let us know what fan you use.
Right.
It was the S6.
I think I have that.
Yeah,
one.
AC
Mhm.
Infinity.
I
Oh,
may
it's
not
Infinity?
have. Yeah,
Okay.
I think I have that one. I'm not sure which
I'll
one.
go look right now.
I switched to the S8
Right, it's right there.
because I put the S6 on the 7, but I know, so I have the 8
Right.
on the 9 now. But it was.
Oh wait, the 6. So
Yeah.
it's a 6-inch. It's a
Mhm.
6-inch, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one you have.
Yeah.
The 6-inch. Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
So I had this
I gotta buy a
grandiose
new fan.
idea that I was going to run three lasers on one fan, so that's why I went to the 8-inch. But then,
Mm.
I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's just, even though my neighbor's an HVAC guy and he approved my design and everything, I was going to do it and run them in tandem.
Yeah.
I thought against it. Okay.
Yep.
So yeah. So the next day, so the first thing she said was call Liz. So Liz Rivers from Laser
Mhm.
Outpost.
Right.
Yep.
She's a friend of mine, and
She's
so-
the best.
oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank God I called her first, because I think she's who kept me sane.
Right.
And, the first thing, not the first thing she said, but one of the first things was, okay, you need to put in a ticket. And I'm like, put in a ticket?
Right.
You
Just burnt it to the crisp. What do you mean put in a ticket? Yeah.
Yeah, but I did. I ultimately put in a ticket, and it was Monday before,
Mhm.
Right.
because it was Easter.
Right.
Didn't
Right.
expect anybody to call me on Easter.
Right.
But-
Especially not with that one. They're gonna have to wait until they
Right,
have
right.
a good day ahead of them to
Yeah, there was a lot of videos and photographs and things like that
Yeah.
that were exchanged to assess the damage, to decide if we were going to ship the machine back, if they were going to
Right.
ship technicians to me.
Mhm.
Right.
But we ultimately fixed it ourselves.
That's
Wow.
Yeah.
awesome.
I mean,
Mhm.
with the remote
No, of
assistance,
course,
Right,
like,
of course,
no,
of course. No, I was
Yeah.
saying, wow, and shout
Yeah.
out to them for
Right.
being able to, and
Yeah.
like having the know-how to walk you through it
yeah,
Yeah.
Absolutely.
yeah.
and everything.
And
Wow.
now you have 2
Yeah,
working
yeah.
lasers.
So what happened there was, so when the machine went down, that job I was able to finish on the Glowforge because
Mm.
I could.
You still had it?
Mhm, I
Nice.
still have the Glowforge.
Wow.
I'm not a good salesperson, and so how am
Yeah.
I going to sell something that I would not buy again myself?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't hate the machine. It was a
Yeah.
great. We still use it occasionally. But
Right.
yeah. So sidebar there.
That's how you
Yeah.
sell it. It's a great
Right.
beginner machine.
It is a great beginner machine.
is.
It's like the Cricut
Yeah.
of the
It
of
totally
the lasers.
is. Yeah.
So we were down, and I was able to finish the acrylic, but I also had a really large hat patch order, so I sent that one to Liz. But
Mhm.
I was like,
Oh,
I've
thank
got
God for Liz.
Yeah.
so she helped me
She's the
there,
best.
and then I was like,
She
all right,
really is.
but it was too hard. Like the engraving time, just
Yeah.
going from a Mira 9 to
Oh,
a
and-
Glowforge. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
no.
stupid.
Yeah. You can't. It's painful. It's
It's
painfully
indis-
slow when you don't know better.
Right?
But when you know better, it's like,
Crippling.
oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I then turned to Bank of Nanny, my mom, and I was like, I need to get another machine. Like
yeah.
I don't have the cash right now. Like,
Right.
she had just sold a house, so I knew that there
Mm.
was a little extra to
Right.
be borrowed, and I am paying her back.
Right.
And I was like, can you help me out? So then I went on my quest. I contacted my salesperson, how long to get a machine. They were like,
Right.
August. I'm like, I can't wait till August. This was April.
Right.
So I found one aftermarket or secondhand, and it
Yeah.
was about 4 hours away.
Wow.
And we drove there.
Oh
And
yeah, I
back.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
You
Well,
guys
first
were
we
going to pick it up.
Yeah, well, first
Yep.
we found one in Florida. We thought that deal didn't go through. Thank goodness in a way, because
Yeah.
getting it
I don't know
from
how
Florida,
we really would have got it here.
I think I would have gotten you to Florida, and you would have tried to stay here again.
Yes.
But
Yes.
we
It's
found one in
good idea.
Buffalo,
Do
New
it.
York.
I'm staying this time.
Good. Okay. Nice. We have a guest room temporarily.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So-
I'll babysit.
Say
So
less.
you haven't met the children yet.
they're really nice
Yeah.
most of the time.
They look really cute in pictures,
They
so
are.
I'm down.
Mhm.
And it's okay. By the time we want to go out, they'll be in bed anyway.
Yeah, exactly. We just need someone in the house
Yeah.
so that we
Adult-
can leave.
Because it's frowned upon to
legally.
leave
I
the
am your
house
girl.
sleeping.
I am your girl.
It's one thing to leave your laser. You can't leave your
Right. I know. I mean, I
Yeah.
forgot about it.
So
but-
so we ran up to outside of Buffalo, New York, wasn't
Yeah,
it? And
yeah,
picked up this laser from a
Really
wonderfully
nice girl,
kind,
yes.
great family. Yeah,
Oh.
they were super, super sweet. Like, and I was even trying to convince her, like I was trying to sell her on taking a course, like you take Emily Caroline's course, take,
Mhm.
get Liz Rivers to help you. She does, like
right.
I was trying to get her to not sell the laser. I'm
Right.
ridiculous.
We drove all the way, but please don't sell it.
Right,
Don't
right,
sell it to
Yeah.
me.
right. I'm like,
I
are you
don't-
sure? Like you'll really love it
Yeah.
once you. She's like, no, I've parted with it already. Like I'm done. I'm like, okay, fine. So I'll take it.
In that case, fine. I'll take it off your
Right.
hand.
If you have 2 7s and they're looking for a 9,
I mean, for the right price, I'd
Yeah.
maybe consider it.
Yeah.
we'll come pick up the 7s, but you gotta ship this 9.
And then I could just use Emily's, Heather's 9 if I ever need a larger order
Yeah.
because she never uses hers.
We'll talk about this.
So
Does she have it Does she have it hooked up yet?
Yes.
it is hooked
Okay,
up. She
okay.
never
Yeah.
uses it, but it's
Okay.
hooked up. Yeah.
Because
Vented
I would,
and-
I would have
vented
to
and
dust
everything.
it off.
Oh,
you
really?
know?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I saw
Vented.
the
Yeah, she
vented,
got
yeah.
the hole recently
Yeah.
and
nice.
she didn't need to do any aligning or anything like that to get her. Yeah. Which is
Nice.
pretty good for Beyonce because she's a diva. Like diva. Like mine's
Ooh,
a
very
diva, but
temperamental.
hers, mine is too. But so is hers. And we
Yeah.
have one of the like first few. I didn't know
Mhm.
that when I was ordering. I'm pretty sure she was on shipment 2
Okay.
and I was on shipment 4, I
Wow.
believe.
Good.
Wow.
Wow.
Shipment 4,
So,
Riley Black Design.
I just
Mirror
thought
9.
it was like the first, like, I don't know what I thought. I think I thought that like, oh, this is like they're just now starting to like number the shipments
Mhm.
or like I don't know. I didn't think that like it was so new that like
Right.
it was really just like the 4th shipment of the laser
Yeah.
because so many people I knew had already had them. So to me, I didn't feel like they could be that new because Emily had hers and had it for a while. Heather had ordered hers. My friend Jasmine had ordered hers. Tiffany had ordered hers. And so I'm like, okay, I'm literally the only one who doesn't have one. Oh, Mindy had ordered hers as well. So I
Wow.
was like, I can't be the only one. I'm having major FOMO over here
Yeah.
with my little Glowforge that pisses me off every day. That's still making me tons of money, but I'm still want to punch it every single day, waiting for that day that like, oh, you're gonna need a refurb or whatever.
Right.
And so, so then I had to have one and fast forward to now. But
Yeah.
now we
were
more.
shipment 25 for our 9,
nice.
so we were a little ways
And
behind
they're
you.
like 60 something.
Yeah,
70
when I see
something
that
now.
post, I'm like, wow, they're ramping
crazy.
up big time.
Insane.
So we got the 7 back and we got it installed, and it kept us afloat for the couple weeks that the 9 was down. But I
Yeah.
think I had started to do the tumblers on the 9 and I enjoyed doing them, but I hadn't really gotten into them full force yet because of the taking the blades out.
I hate it so
I
much.
hate it.
It's not that bad, but I hate it.
Well, mine you have to actually tap with a rubber mallet. Like
right. So
some of
it's
mine are
kind
real
of-
tight.
yeah.
To get in?
So it's annoying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
How
then
do you get them in from the front
I'll usually align them in the back and then
and then just drop them in?
yeah,
Oh, you still have to
like
tap
some of
'em.
them will, like my 7, they go in.
Mhm.
My 9, like there's just a few of
Yeah,
them.
'cause
I
I've
have a rubber
noticed
mallet.
I've noticed on hers, I got to put the back in 1st
Mhm.
and then drop them in.
Yeah.
That's why
Some
I
of
was
these
wondering.
won't even drop. I went as far as I numbered them so that
So-
once I found ones that fit really well in that spot,
Right,
they stayed
stay
in
there.
that spot.
Yeah.
But I had already started. I'm like, I think we need a second laser for the tumblers because this
Yeah.
is getting really old. So like the 7 was already in the back of
It
my
was,
mind.
already-
And
it
I
was gonna
swear,
happen.
I
Right.
swear I did
regardless.
not catch the 9 on fire for the
On
sake of getting a
purpose.
7.
Right?
I mean, my dad used to say I used to do stuff like that to get out of work, but that is not.
I
that-
your
can't
brain-
imagine that.
no, you know how detrimental that was.
Your subconscious lit it on fire safely.
I mean, maybe. I don't know.
The look
No.
on your face that day, there's
Yeah.
no way you did that on purpose.
Right.
No.
The universe said the only way I'm gonna get them a second laser is if I burn down
See,
this
they're
one.
just helping
Yeah,
you out.
it's the
like a
catalyst
little bit of-
again. I
a
needed
little bit of stress,
mhm.
but once you got through that,
Mhm. So, like replacing though, like buying the 7, even though it was secondhand, and then all the replacement parts for the 9, like all in, I probably am at the price of a 9. But
yeah,
so like if I had it all to do over again for a second laser, would I've got a second 9? I don't know. Like I think I wanted a second 9.
yeah,
I was rationalizing in my head, but really the 7 is the perfect size for the pie burn.
right.
Even in the
Right.
I have
yeah.
mine in the cat dog configuration. Like it's the perfect pie
It
burn.
really
machine.
is.
Except
Yeah.
for if you have really large dog bowls. That was my
right.
Achilles heel. My friend sent me a big dog bowl. It didn't
Right.
fit in my laser. It wasn't
Yeah.
the pie burn's fault. It was the depth, the Z
Right.
depth.
Yeah. What is the Z depth on the 7?
I think it's 7 inches.
Is
This bowl was 8.5.
Oh,
It's
see,
the
and I
same
don't
with the
even think
9.
would it fit in the 9?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it
the,
doesn't
the
fit-
7
okay.
and the 9 are the
Okay,
same.
so then I
Z.
think it's like 6.
Is it 6?
Six-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I
Yeah, 'cause
thought
I
somebody
know-
said they did a 6.5-inch bowl, so I
It
think
might-
that's why
yeah, it
I
might
thought 7.
be.
But
No, it might be, yeah, because I've only done one thing where I really needed to like test the full like Z
Mhm.
depth, and I don't remember what that was, but it was
Yeah.
like it was like a rectangle, a taller like wood urn.
okay.
So, and I had to like engrave the top. But yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it just not having to switch that out and put them back in every time, and then your flat settings and your rotary. And I swear, guys, it's not hard. If you're not,
It's not.
if you're if you're not buying one for that reason, a rotary, we're being
It's not,
stupid, and
yes.
that's
Yeah.
why I have this
Yes.
one. So
It's not
that, and
difficult
did
at
she
all.
do it for you too? Because I would make her
No.
no.
I mean,
See, thank you.
I wouldn't make
I'm
you,
just kidding.
She does a lot, but I would never say, "Will you switch it out for the rotary for me?" Like that's one that I didn't pull on her yet.
I did.
All the time.
Well, I think honestly, because how it usually starts is I'll bitch about it, and then he was like, "Well, I can switch it out for you." And I'm like, "Oh, say no more. Like, do it, okay?" Because like I'll procrastinate for days on a friend's
Mhm.
order or something just because I don't
wanna
want to
switch
switch it
it,
over and
right?
But
switch
then
it back.
she also procrastinates on orders after that because then it's the pie burns in there.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes. And
You guys
then now I
both
need
yeah.
to switch it back to
Mhm.
non-rotary. And if I didn't have to ever switch it, it would be amazing.
So, and I learned something that I didn't know. So once I had my dedicated tumbler machine, I was still switching back to flat settings
Oh
because
yeah, you don't have to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because, when you're switching back and forth,
Right, yeah,
they
you
always say
don't
go back
know.
to
It's
flat.
just part of
Mhm. And so, like, even though I was not taking the rotary out, I was always going back to flat settings. And then one
Mhm.
day I pinged DJ. I'm like,
Do I
"EJ,
really
do I
need to do
really need
this?"
to do this?" He's like, "Actually, no, you don't." I'm like, "Oh, thanks." Like, why didn't I just try it on my own?
Right.
No, I don't
Yeah.
know why, but EJ answers 98% of my tickets. So I don't know what he
Yeah.
did in a former life to
Right.
me first with that,
He's-
but
right. I know, poor guy. He's so nice though. He's
Yeah,
so
he
nice
is.
and patient.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I now
That
have my
reminds me, we gotta invite him over again for some ribs.
Some ribs.
Ooh.
Yeah, for the podcast.
Ooh,
Some ribs for the
do,
podcast.
do you smoke ribs?
Yeah. Yeah, I have a Traeger.
Hey.
Yeah.
I know.
That's
Sorry.
That's what.
We're here until Monday.
I mean, there's time. We haven't had ribs in a while.
Not like
Your
scratch
ribs.
ribs. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I'm not ashamed to invite myself.
Well, this was kind of your idea, like not the podcast.
I was gonna say, wait a minute.
He was like, "Did she plan this?" And I was like, "I don't think so."
So for future reference, if you come travel to Florida and you're
Hit
in
us
the
up.
business, you can't come here without being on the podcast. Just throwing that out there.
Sorry, I know she was like.
So if you really want to be on the podcast, you got to come down here. In
well,
person
she was
and let us know
posting
you're in town.
her awesome Tumblr designs in the group,
Mhm.
and like the seam was just perfection. And I was like, okay, I need to learn that from you. And I mean, there's been plenty of people who have helped me, Liz being one of them, before with like the wraps and that kind of stuff. But I always like overthink it.
Mhm.
And so when I saw that and I was like, oh, you're gonna have to teach me,
Yep.
when I find the time to sit down and actually try and learn it again. And she was like, oh, well, and we had already talked about meeting up anyway
Right.
while you were out here. And she was like, oh, well, I think visit to the Riley Black workshop would be a good idea. And I was like,
Notice
oh,
I said
yeah.
workshop, not
Right.
Well,
project,
the studio's
project.
in the
Mhm.
studio in the
yeah,
workshop.
you
realize.
know. And I go, oh, you could be on the podcast. And which again is perfect because right now I have no idea what we're doing next week. I haven't been booking much of anything because we've just been so all over the place with
Mhm.
getting the house together and like the parties and like, his grandma's estate and all that kind of stuff. So we've just kind of been like flying by the seat of our pants. And I don't want to, especially book someone who doesn't know me and then have to reschedule or whatever. So I have a lot of like awesome guests on my list. Not that you're not awesome, but like a lot of the people that, have been able to like come in at the last minute have been, people from the community who like would understand if I'm like, just kidding, can't do it today. Or can you do it tomorrow? Like I did to David. So, but yeah, it was just perfect. It was like, oh, then I don't have to worry about who we're going to have on or what are we going to talk about or whatever. So yeah, it was just, it kind of worked.
Yeah.
And I ran out of time. We're probably over, huh? What is our time?
Huh? We're at an hour.
Oh, really?
I mean,
Just
a
about?
little over. Well, technically,
Technically.
it's 1:43.
Damn.
But there was like 20 minutes that I
Was
was
it?
recording before we actually started.
Okay. Well, I still want to give him his full like shout out. So I'm not going to do the full thing now.
Okay.
I'm going to tease it and that I'm going to talk about how I got this awesome melted custom Riley Black color.
Towards the center. Towards the center. Here we go.
You do it. I can't reach my T-Rex arms.
Hope I don't drop it.
Speaking of T-Rex, so I'm very ADD. ADHD, I don't know, whatever, undiagnosed, whatever it is. So we asked our 6-year-old, we said, what are we were talking about? Why were we talking about T-Rexes?
Your arms. We were talking about your T-Rex arms.
My T-Rex
It's a
arms.
hand
And I was like,
something.
oh, T-Rex arms. And I said, do you know what dinosaur a T-Rex is? And he was like, yeah. And we're like, which one? He's like, this one. It's so hilarious.
Yeah, it's
like
great.
we die. He wasn't trying, everybody cracks me
Because he
up.
said
So
he
now
said yes so confidently.
he's like, yeah. And I
Well,
was
which
like,
one
which
is-
one?
Yeah.
And he's like, this one.
Yeah. Not the giant, carnivore that
Right,
eats
yeah.
other.
No,
This one.
this one. And it was so accurate. And I was like, oh, it's great. Yeah. But his name is Jordan Jolly. and we'll talk about it next time. But it's
Check him out on
an-
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, I don't know what his Instagram handle is.
Would it be
Probably
Jordan
Jordan Jolly. Yeah, I don't know if it's anything else, but I think
Google
that's
Jordan
his-
Jolly.
Yeah, but we'll give him his full
We'll give him a full.
attention next time.
Yeah.
But it's really awesome.
Yeah.
This probably doesn't know justice, but
Yeah.
with my matte black, because
I love it.
I
Yes,
love
and
that.
metallic
cute.
red.
And metallic red.
I like the
and
metallic.
Yeah. I've been watching him for forever, stalking him legally on Instagram.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's public.
that's what
so
Instagram's for.
it's
Yeah.
public.
Right.
His page is public. So it's
Right.
Right.
So let's get that second
Um,
machine paid off. Where can people find you?
Well, wait, hold on. She also gave us the listeners discount
Oh,
codes.
discount code. Well, let's get you guys paid.
Right. We'll give you some money before. So the first one, so we're only going to mention the one,
Mhm.
and that's the one for everybody.
General
What's
admission.
the code for them?
RBP10
RBP10.
Yeah.
And that's for 10%.
off of my
Off of-
Etsy store.
And so
Right.
what's your Etsy store?
So they can find it under Say Creative LLC if you search by the shop name. We do have a website, and I can put the code on that
Yeah.
too. Saycreative.com. That's CEST creative.com.
Right.
So I'll apply that code on that one as well. I
Cool.
did do the Etsy one before I came on. But like this is live or something, right?
Right. Yeah.
But I don't have quite as much on the website yet.
Yeah. Same.
So
Yeah. I need to get all of my files from my 180 something files from Etsy
Right.
onto my website, because it would make sense, especially people buying keychain thingies.
Mhm.
They could buy some keychain files if they're in the same spot. But
I'm struggling a little bit, so I opted to go with Amazon Web Services for the
Mm.
hosting because I use WooCommerce for the front
Oh,
end,
okay.
and that's better for the speed and everything. And I'm
Yeah.
having a little connectivity issue, but that's not really my wheelhouse. Like
Right.
I do everything. Like Trish and I do everything on our own. And
Yeah.
I think I'm at the point I need to start outsourcing.
Right. Yeah.
And that 10 is for 10% or $10?
10%.
10%.
And
So
then there's a
10% is nice. But
Bigger
if you want more,
discount.
join Patreon. It's
Mhm.
only what's the cheapest one? $4?
How do you not know this yet?
$4?
Yes, $4.
$4 a month.
What's the
And you
most
get all this
expensive?
show early. Huh? $12. No, 23 for
25.
25. 20 something.
This guy.
I'll
He's
get
not
those
even
prices
just
right.
the
I'll get those
he
prices.
does the editing.
That's all I do is the editing.
It really
She
is.
did. She set
And
it
all
up.
of that stuff that you can't see.
Yeah, she set it up.
Yeah.
All this stuff that you don't see is me.
He does that.
Yeah,
Mhm.
she set up the Patreon. I
You do
told her about
everything else.
Patreon, but she set it up.
You did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So join Patreon. Help us out. Watch the YouTube channel. Just play it in the background.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
where can they find you? Same with Instagram, TikTok, all the
At Say Creative. It's a pretty unique name, so it wasn't taken yet. I got it on all platforms: TikTok, Facebook. Say Creative.
You're like,
You
"Huh,
just have to
mine."
spell it right.
Yeah, right.
It's up to you to figure it out, though. No,
Right.
CEST.
Well, and I mean, we didn't ask. Is there any additional advice that you have for a newer struggling laser? Because we
Oh.
covered some pretty
Yeah.
good ones,
Yeah,
especially the
don't
one
walk
like
away.
don't. Yeah.
I think if you're, I think her advice if you're a new or struggling laser owner is keep an eye on that laser when you're doing
Mhm.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
that really would
That's
be
a
the
big
number
one.
one. I mean,
Yeah.
I could go into pulling out the business advice and stuff, but I
Right.
think
Right.
that's pretty readily available. And to say to formulate your plan, we just talked about how we so go off book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd be remiss if I tried to give
Yeah.
sage business advice at this point.
Right. But so
Don't walk
you haven't walked away since, right?
No.
You haven't gone
No,
to the
no.
bathroom.
I mean, I do have a portable camera that I have on there. Like if I have to walk over to my
Right.
computer or whatever, I
Yeah.
literally walk
Well,
around
and
with
the
my
hard
phone.
part that people don't realize now that we're back on the the fire topic
Right.
again is you think that you're going to hear it.
No.
It doesn't always, and it's also like I've heard with kids choking. When they're choking, it's silent. So you can't
Yeah.
wait
Or
until right.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too.
Yeah.
We witnessed literally someone drowned in a pool. we
Not
were
a kid.
in,
It was an adult.
an adult, and we had no idea
Oh
because
my
there was no
gosh.
splashing, there
Mhm.
was no anything,
Mhm.
and so a lot of dangers are silent. And even, I mean, you see how my setup is behind the cameras and stuff. Thankfully, it's kind of to my left, but if my back is turned, and my back has always been turned to my laser just because of the configuration of my spaces, and it wasn't something that could be in front of me or to the side of me, you're not going to hear it.
Right.
The fire doesn't make a noise until it breaks something. And then if it's gotten to that point, it's gone too far.
Yeah.
And so, I always, anytime you see those fires in the groups, it's heartbreaking because that like they're shattered.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like we've all had, like, before then you've had probably like flare-ups and stuff here and there, right?
Yeah.
Well, but what stopped them from turning into a fire was the fact that you were there.
Right.
The fact that you were able to pause it, that you were able to stop it, or you opened it, or even if you sprayed it with water or you moved it or whatever.
Mhm.
The reason those flare-ups didn't turn into a fire is typically because of us.
Right.
And so when we see these huge, like where the whole machine is like destroyed, it's like, oh no, this was you. Yes, it started with the laser, but the reason it got this far was because of you.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's like, no matter what, like you have to just remember that it's just, if you care about your house and you're
She's a man, right?
Right.
so it's just it's easy in the moment to be
Mhm.
like, oh, whatever, especially going to the bathroom, but just to think if like it could happen in
Mhm.
that time, and would that bathroom break, and that 3 minutes that you saved on that job, would it really be worth it, to not pause it? And that was another thing that sucked with the glow forge.
I was just gonna say that, like,
which is a safety issue, which now
Yes.
you can pause.
you can.
You
I
can't,
didn't know
but
that.
well, in the beginning you couldn't.
Right.
When I bought the glow forge, there was no pause. It
Right.
was like, oh, I'm gonna have to cancel my job.
Mhm.
Or and the other thing, I mean, there might have been pause, but you couldn't open the lid.
Right.
And which you may still not be able to.
Yeah.
I don't
haven't
remember.
tried.
I'm like, my brain is like getting fogged of which one it was. But I know, so with the Mira, you can pause it, open up the lid, like adjust something, put something out,
Yep.
whatever,
Yep.
close the lid and resume your
Right.
job.
Yep.
As long as you obviously don't move your materials, you're fine.
Right.
With the glow forge, you can pause it. You could pause it. I think you always could pause it, but you can't open the lid. You open the lid and you've
That's
now
right.
canceled your whole
Mhm.
thing. So I will say, like, if there's a little flare up, I'm going to pause it, but I'm also going to watch and wait and do I really need to open this
Mhm.
and like basically ruin all of the progress I've made
Right.
so far? Because then here's the other thing with that fisheye lens, lining that up again, God forbid, if it like refocuses, now I can't even use that same material,
Right.
even if it didn't move.
Right.
So yeah, I always thought that, especially knowing how industrial machines worked, I always thought that was kind of a safety issue, because you never really wanted to like pause it and open the lid, because then it just like, resets
Yeah.
everything.
Yep.
But again, even with that, like, it's just, you have to remember that it's not worth it. Just pause that thing,
And
go
I
to
think
the bathroom and
Yeah.
go take a nap if you need one, if you're
Well, that's
really
another thing,
tired,
yeah, if
resume it in
you're-
the morning.
Any job, I mean, as big as whatever, you can always like just come back tomorrow if you're
Right.
that tired.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a big thing, I hold integrity pretty high, and
Yeah.
like the first thing I did was own up to my own mistake, and
Right.
I'm not putting myself on a pedestal for that
Right,
fact,
right,
but like never once did I think that the machine failed me.
right.
Like
Or it was your material.
right. Like I
or
knew exactly what
whatever.
happened. It was
Yeah.
that I walked away, and my
Right.
sister was like, "Oh, that company needs to," blah, blah. And I'm like, "The company doesn't need to do anything."
Yeah. Oh,
I'm
no.
surprised the company didn't, fire me as a partner,
Oh,
kind of thing.
right,
Like,
yeah.
right. Like I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
sorry guys, I'm a bad
Yeah.
rep.
Yeah. Well, and design. People do not realize how much design. We were wrapping this up, and then here we go again.
I'm so sorry.
I'm
I'm a
the
talker.
worst. Yeah. But people don't realize how much design goes into contributing to a flare up or a fire.
Right.
So one, there's a reason why so many of those fuck flakes started fires, and it's because of the design. Not that it's a flaw in her design. It just means that if you choose to run that design, that's especially one that you need to be
Right.
monitoring and you never walk away from. I had a friend who was, cutting a bunch of embossers, which are just basically like squares. Well, instead of like, they were right next to each other to get as much as she could out of the material. And eventually when I put my hand on it, I was like, no, just do one line for that cut, and then they're right next to each other, and then you don't even need to butt them up to each other. But when she had experienced so many flare-ups and fires, I was like, when she sent me the file, I was like, hey girl, like, I know, like, not that there isn't an issue, but the design is definitely contributing to the reason why you're having additional flare-ups. And so that's something to especially with acrylic too, and those small little cuts that are close together, that acrylic gets hot and it stays hot, and then you keep adding onto it, and then it's just only going to increase your chances of that happening. So yeah, keep in mind that even you can design something that makes it catch on fire.
Only you can prevent mirror fires.
Laser fires.
Laser fire.
Not only mirrors, or not only Glowforges catch on fire either.
Only you can prevent laser fires.
There you go. Thank you, Smokey the Bear, whatever his name is.
She's horrible with names.
I am.
Well,
All right.
thank you guys for visiting.
Thank you.
And thank you for being on the show.
Surprise guests.
Yeah. And you guys, we've been pushing it all episode. Follow us on social media, Riley Black Project. Follow us on Patreon, and like and subscribe on YouTube. And keep watching.
Thanks.
It's been another great episode of the Riley Black Project. Chris and John.
Bye.
Maybe we're all done.
Are you tired of endlessly joining jump rings?
There's gotta be an easier way.
Are your wrists aching after numerous orders? Introducing Keychain Thingies, the time-saving solution for anyone making keychains.
It's so fast and easy.
These revolutionary plastic thingies make large or multiple orders a snap. So easy, even a child can do it.
That was so easy.
So what are you waiting for? Go to keychainthingies.com and order now. Keychain Thingies will change your life. However, they should not be used to cure any medical ailments, repair broken relationships, or help lose weight. Do not use Keychain Thingies unless you want to save time and aggravation.